Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, back from a stint in the health and safety protocols, it's Matt Pennie. Pennie, how you going, man?
I'm great. If you can see behind me, I'm in the health and safety protocols in the North Pole, apparently. Also, my living room, multi-purpose here. You were a real bro last podcast by not kind of giving up, not really my secret, but a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of my personal life. You're like, oh, he's on a holiday. So I actually had a couple people reach out to me being like, why didn't you record a pod? Like, you're taking a week off. What's wrong with you? It's like, no, I can't breathe. I feel like I was hit by a bus. That's why I took time off. So it's been, I'm looking down at my calendar here, 8-ish days now home in the health and safety protocols. Little weird story. I tested positive and a home test, negative at an urgent care, and then positive in a PCR. So test multiple times, be safe. Was bad the first few days, got a lot better as time wore on. My apartment's small. My wife's here, my 2-year-old son, so it's a little bit of house arrest. My wife also sends me outside for about an hour a day with a mask on out in the backyard like a dog, saying, get out of here, go stretch, get your exercise, whatever you need to do. And we're also potty training at the same time. If there's a positive here, it's that I've reverted back to my 2008 wardrobe, which is just sweatpants and hoodies. So that's a positive. And I really get into online grocery shopping because you can't leave the house. And I became very old very quickly. I had to call because on Christmas Eve, my eggnog wasn't delivered. I felt a 75-year-old guy. And it was back ordered. That's why it wasn't delivered. So I felt like an idiot. Long-winded way of saying I'm back. I feel better. I'm home. I'm not in my usual studio. So I'm sorry for the Christmas cards, holiday cards behind us, but we trudge on. That's what we do here.
The pennies are very popular people. Meanwhile, in my background, I've got like nothing. I've got like a poster sitting down there that you can probably see. It will get hung eventually. I have like 3.
It's like what's the actual postage if someone sent you a holiday card over there though in Australia? Isn't it like outrageous?
Oh, aggressive. Yeah. Aggressive. Yeah. Like way too aggressive. It's funny too. Like you mentioned eggnog. So we had Christmas at Laura's cousin Jack's house. And he and his wife, Jess, or fiance, Jess, had a bunch of people over. It was a really good time. And everyone was vaccinated. Like it was awesome. Right. And we were outdoors most of the time, like that whole thing. But I'm still getting used to the idea of Christmas being in the summer here. So like we had like Aperol spritzes as opposed to like eggnog while we were having drinks. Like it's a different deal.
Beverages. But you're in California before that too. Well, you had to be a little used to having sushi as an appetizer and not the heavy meat and cheese boards. And that was actually a funny thing too, is that Christmas Eve, my sister and her husband and my dad were going to come over, and then we go like extended family on Christmas Day. But so we had like a bunch of stuff here. We had a bunch of food. Like, what are we going to do? So we just did our own little COVID Christmas. So my wife and I were sitting around. I don't know. It was Christmas Eve. It was like 10 o'clock at night. One of those nights watching a movie. She's like, "Should I make a charcuterie board right now?" I'm like, absolutely. What else are we doing? Yeah. So we had a 10 to 11 p.m. charcuterie board and watched, I don't know, The Matrix. Something.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might have watched The Matrix, which I still have not seen yet.
Wow, I'm shocked. I have watched not a ton of movies, but about 6 in the last week, which is a new record for me in the last couple of years, anyway.
I was gonna say I think I'm probably in double digits over the last week, and The Matrix has not been one of them because The Matrix is Laura, my lovely wife's favorite movie of all time, and we want to see it in a theater. So I kind of made her, we went to the movie theaters last night, and I kind of made her prioritize seeing Spider-Man No Way Home because I was worried about spoilers for her, as opposed to The Matrix, which it feels like there's just not like as much of a cultural conversation about on the internet right now for whatever reason. So I figured that was more, that there was a more pressing need for her to go see Spider-Man, which I'd already seen and knew, like, okay, you need to go into this without having seen what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not a spoilers guy ever, and I won't give anything away. But there's a lot of callbacks to the Matrix too. Sometimes you watch movies or TV shows even. I think is worse when You finish a season, they come back like a season and a half, well, like a year and a half, 2 years later, and they'll have like a bit character. And it's like, man, I don't remember how they fit in. Or the Matrix like beats you over the head with like a flashback from the actual first movie. Like, this is who this character was, remember? And I said, oh, yeah, I do. But it's been such a long time that if I didn't have that, I would have been a little bit more confused.
Yeah, like Breaking Bad was kind of the like king of that like callback character that continued to come back. Like you'd see like Tuco or his like uncle come back, and then there'd be like a battle or that whole deal. So we're not talking about movies until the end, though. We are talking about basketball today on the show. We have a few topics here because, as people have noticed, the show it's now like segments and shit. Like this is what we actually do. We go in with a plan now. It's stunning, right? The Pennie experience has helped the podcast grow in that way. Structure, yeah. So first, we're going to talk about Pennie's just beautiful hometown basketball organization, the Boston Celtics. What a team that is right now. And then we're going to move into NBA draft wings because there's a weird crop of wings in this class that we don't really know what to make of yet. And then we're going to do mailbag. We're going to do prospects of the week. And then maybe at the end, we might do some movie stuff. So, okay, Pennie, the Boston Celtics, they are kind of a mess. They just lost to a Minnesota Timberwolves team last night that was led by Greg Monroe, Nathan Knight, Jordan McLaughlin, and others, as Karl Anthony Towns et al. Are out in the health and safety protocols, which you know of all too well. Oh boy, the Celtics team is not very good right now. And the worst part about it is it feels like the vibes around the Celtics are just like just minimally terrible at the moment. Just it feels like a stench emanating from Boston right now due to the basketball team. And it's a shame. Like I really want this team to be good. I think that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are not the problem. But here we are, and the Celtics are sitting at, I'm pulling up their record now. I don't have the exact number in front of me. It's
16 and 18.
It is 16 and 18.
Yeah.
They do have a plus scoring differential, which gives you some vague hope that maybe, they're a little bit better than what the record would indicate. But I don't know, man. When I watch the Celtics, I am just like, there are some significant flaws that need to get worked out here around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, not like because of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Well, we have to start by asking how long the segment's going to be because there's a lot to talk about here. Just for the team stuff, just general stats. They're 28th in the league in scoring. They're 22nd in three-point shooting, 23rd in field goal percentage, 22 in assists. So as much as the point differential helps when you're not shooting the ball and you're in the lower tier of the league, it's hard to win a lot of games. The vibes are bad. Al Horford had a quote post-game yesterday, just something along the lines of, we got to do some soul searching. We got to look in the mirror, evaluate ourselves. And Jaylen Brown was told that quote, and he just said, like, yeah, okay, no comment. Then Jaylen Brown also had a quote that said, just our chemistry wasn't there. Our team chemistry wasn't there. Greg Monroe got to the arena at 4 p.m. Never been played on that team before. They asked him post-game, I think he played 25 minutes. They asked him post-game what he thought of some of the performances. He said, I thought Jaylen Noel played really well. Didn't know his name till the end of the game, which is fun. I'm glad he's candid about that. But if we're going to talk about chemistry issues, like what's Minnesota doing when they're rolling out there with the lineup you said, and Jordan McLaughlin and Malik Beasley, and there's pros, obviously, but it's different. You expect to win that game. And despite losing by 5, no matter what you read or look at today or listen to, it's universally panned as the worst loss of the season because they also don't have like a ton of fight in them either. They've let games get away. They're 3-7 in the last 10. They should have won that game Christmas Day against Milwaukee. I mean, when Giannis goes Hulk up mode, good luck. Still shouldn't have let it slip away. And then with Minnesota too, I've now watched that game twice. The effort is very concerning. And Jaylen Brown was 8 for 24. It's hard to win with that. With Tatum's also in health and safety protocol stuff. So it's kind of like, and I heard your pod you did with Dave Dufour, I believe, when you talked about having both Tatum and Brown. You have two elite self-creating wings that are 25 years old or younger. That's what's covered in the league. Why blow that up? But my question to you, you're much more of an NBA guy than me. You have Marcus Smart, you have Robert Williams, you have Aaron Naismith, you have all these other pieces.
Yep.
How are you able to package them together, and what's the sort of return you want if you're keeping those the other two guys? They're your foundational pieces. How do you package everything else up to improve what you're seeing on the court right now?
So I think that there are two key points that we have to say first with Boston. And I think it's like we need to figure out what the problems are. Like you kind of laid out in terms of the numbers, what the problems are. The first thing is shooting, which you brought up. Like they just have no shooters around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. The floor gets clogged. I don't think anyone really respects Al Horford as a shooter. Nobody gives a fuck if Dennis Schroeder is shooting because everyone just doesn't really respect him as a player. I mean, Marcus Smart, teams let him shoot from the perimeter whenever he wants when he's out on the court. The rest of the young guys just haven't built up any sort of cachet league-wide as shooters. So when I look at the Celtics, I think this is a team that desperately needs more shooting out on the court. Number two, this team does not have a point guard. There is no point guard that can work to get teammates involved. And this is kind of an idea that I wanted to talk to you about. And like, this is something that I brought up on that podcast with Dave Dufour.
Yep.
This team has no connective tissue players outside of Al Horford, in my view, and Marcus Smart to an extent. But Marcus Smart, I think, does like to play on the ball a little bit more than the kind of player that I'm specifically referring to. But I would happily refer to Smart in this way. They have no connective tissue players. Like, you look at the Bulls, the reason the Bulls work with two shoot-first wings and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan on the wing, right, taking up as much usage as they can, is because they have two wholly unselfish guys next to them in Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball that they can keep out on the court, that can make high-level passing reads, that can make great headman passes, that rebound the ball, that defend at a high level. They just do everything and fill all the holes, plug all the gaps that you look for from a team, right? And that to me is like the epitome of a connective tissue player. Like I want someone who can just plug the gaps on a roster, right? And theoretically, Marcus Smart can do that from time to time because he's such a high-level defender, but he does like to dominate the ball a little bit more than this type of player, I think, and he doesn't shoot it. Like the other thing with these guys is that they tend to be able to shoot the basketball. The Celtics need to prioritize guys who can defend, guys who can shoot, and guys who are unselfish passers. It's hard to find those guys all in one single, package of player, right? Like it's not the easiest thing in the world to find someone like this. But to me, their best bet going forward is like punting this season. Like I would not really care. Like I would want to make the play-in, but they can't win a title this year. Like they're not good enough to win a title. So if I was them, so Marcus Smart is eligible to be traded, I believe, starting in, I think it's like mid to late January. I don't know the exact date that he signed his contract officially and made it 6 months from like the mid to late August date that he signed his extension, right? So they can move him starting in mid to late January, let's say. I would move Marcus Smart for an expiring contract and future assets. Like I brought up the idea of like a Joe Ingles and a first-round pick for Marcus Smart deal. Joe Ingles helps them from a shooting perspective. He helps them from an unselfishness perspective. He is not like an elite level defender, but he's not a bad defender. And I don't think that like there would be a drastic drop off. They're a pretty good defensive team as it is. I think that they can make it work with Joe Ingles, who works hard and is big and is strong. I think that Marcus Smart helps Utah. He gives them another elite level perimeter defender, which is something that they do need. He is a confident shooter, which is something that is necessary within their scheme. So I kind of think that for Utah, like that makes sense. I think for Boston, it makes sense because it helps to clear their books for next offseason. I would try to find a taker for Al Horford's $13 million or whatever the number is guaranteed next season. I wouldn't want to give up first round pick this year, but I would be willing to attach like, Romeo Langford or, I don't know if I'd want to attach like Aaron Naismith or Grant. Maybe I'd be willing to attach a Grant Williams, right, to that deal to get Al Horford's money off of my books for an expiring contract next year. I would want to go into the offseason with basically very, very little on the books outside of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, and young guys. That would be my goal at the end of the day. I would want very, very little on the books going forward. And I think that is how you go about attacking, and I keep bringing up the Bulls, but a Chicago Bullsian, quick little rebuild. You already have the core pieces that you want to build around in place. That's the hard part. Maintaining flexibility around those core pieces is really important for moments like this, where you need to do a full shift of the players around those guys, right?
Yeah.
I would basically focus my next 2 months, if I was Boston, maybe even, 6 or 7 months, depending on how long it takes them to offload certain contracts. I would want to focus my next little while here on clearing the books, making it so that I can get into this offseason with as much flexibility as possible, because next year is Boston's critical year. They have 2 years left on Jaylen Brown's contract after this year. They need to prove to Jaylen Brown that it is worth staying in Boston to play next to Jason Tatum.
Yes. Everything you say, I totally agree with. Here's the problems I have with it, though, is that you kind of drafted shooting. Aaron Naismith was drafted for shooting. Hasn't necessarily got like the fairest shake, I guess. He's playing 10 minutes a night before he was put in health and safety protocols. Peyton Pritchard was brought in for shooting. He was really out of the rotation before 8 guys entered health and safety protocols. The draft, if they're not going to play necessarily the guys that they're drafting, I don't know if I want to build up all these picks if Ime Udoka just doesn't feel comfortable or feels like you need to more win right now. And the free agency thing that scares me is we're not a destination. So like it sounds good to have a lot of cap space and you're going to do trades and whatever, but I don't think you're 1, 2, 3, even like 5 on upper tier free agents list. So you have to like overpay a little bit, which they did for Al Horford. And that started the trickle down effect of everybody else. And if you remember with the trades of with Ray Allen, with Kevin Garnett, that's because Paul Pierce is already here. They were very close in my mind. They blew it up a little bit, add some pieces, end up winning a championship. I don't know if people are clamoring to play with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now. I like the Joe Ingles feel. But the draft, it's scary because the draft, it's like I pulled off your name. I think you had him at like 14 or 16 right now. You have him taking Ousmane Deng. I like Ousmane Deng. He's good. I don't know if he plays 10 minutes a night next year.
No, he doesn't.
So you have that. You have free agency. You don't know necessarily what you're going to get. You're not a sexier place like in LA or Miami where we'll get a guy or two. So as much as you need to make some moves, and I don't think a major one, I still am just like leery of where it comes from.
Well, the other move that I like for them is trying to get involved with the Ben Simmons like sweepstakes without moving Jaylen Brown, right? Like seeing if you can find a way to move, 3 future first round picks for Ben Simmons, in a 3-team deal or a 4-team deal.
Yeah, I mean that's probably more doable if he's on board with that. If Philadelphia is on board with that, you get a third partner in there, and then when you roll out, he's somebody that we talked about offline that can be one of these connectors, and that's what they probably need. It's like the criticism of Ben Simmons is he doesn't want to shoot in the games. The criticism with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum is all they want to do is shoot at the end of games. So it is kind of a marriage that could work between those type of guys. I like another point guard too. I thought maybe Josh Richardson would slide into that role a little bit. I'm not super comfortable or confident with Marcus Smart always kind of taking the ball end of games. And Ben Simmons would be an attractive piece. I don't know if Daryl Morey would go for what our poo-poo platter of picks and prospects would be.
I don't think that Daryl Morey would, but I wonder if there's a world where you can involve like 4 teams.
Yeah.
And, can get like a mishmash of things together with other players going elsewhere. And kind of things like that, and just kind of trying to make it happen as much as anything. But I don't know. We'll see. I think that the Celtics are in a very difficult situation now. The other thing is that like they could really upgrade themselves by getting shooting. And I don't think shooting is that hard to find on the market. Like the Rockets became a much more viable team just by playing like Garrison, Matthews, and Armani Brooks and like spacing the court out and like actually deciding to play coherent, competent offense, right?
Right.
And by the way, like the Celtics cut, like this is salt in the wound because the Celtics cut Garrison Matthews at
Just
training
twisting,
camp.
just twisting the knife too.
He's exactly what they needed. Like
yeah.
maybe the answer is playing Sam Hauser, but I don't think Sam Hauser is the kind of movement shooter
they played him a little bit
that Garrison Matthews is.
Yeah. It's just crazy how like the bounces and rolls go with it too. We're talking about this here now a couple years later. I mean, were we a fluke Gordon Hayward injury away from being in the finals and making a run for it? Does that make Kyrie less of a malcontent when he was in Boston? Does that? But now all of a sudden we're picking up the pieces and saying we messed up cutting Garrison Matthews. That's basketball. That's pro sports. Moves quickly.
Yeah.
They have the right people in the front office, but you have to do something. You can't sit in your hands too, because beyond that, it's been a tough product to watch. It has, and there's a lot of like casual Celtics fans and close Celtics fans out there that like I can't watch it, especially in the fourth, because you see it slipping away. It turns into one-on-one basketball. There's not movement because you don't have one of those connectors, so it becomes this side isolation, side step three. What are we doing here? We don't defend. We're not fighting through screens. And as much as Marcus Smart, I get it that maybe it's time for him to move on. Why people resonate with him in Boston is because he plays so hard. He cares. He'll step up for charges. He dives for loose balls. Does he take some crazy jump shots 3 times a game where it's no, 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 yes, yes, yes? Absolutely. But I want guys that kind of bring that intensity more. And as much as we're shipping out Al Horford, God bless him, because if you've watched the Minnesota game, he was the only guy in my eyes that was actually trying to move the ball. They started the game with a short roll. He hit an alley-oop to Robert Williams. Next time he took it off the rim, drives full court, gives Jaylen Brown a post feed. Like he's trying. Like Father Time's undefeated. I get it. He's in the back end, but he's trying. Like those two guys, like I don't question their intensity or their intent out there.
Yeah, and I don't question them being good basketball players. Like I think that they're good. Like I actually think that they're helpful basketball players in an NBA construct. Like Al Horford last year, like OKC had to shut him down because they were playing too well with him at times. Like he was
tanking.
Almost
Stop being good at basketball.
He was too useful for them. So like, I think Al Horford's good. I think Marcus Smart's a good basketball player. I think that the problem is that Marcus Smart's deficiencies offensively are almost catastrophic with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's tendencies offensively. And that makes it tough. That makes it really, really tough to kind of navigate. But okay, we've talked enough about the Celtics. Do you have a closing sentiment here before we move forward?
No, that was heartbreaking. It's going to get better. And that's all I get. It's going to get better. I hope so.
I'm proud of us. We kept that to like between 15 and 20 minutes. That was the goal here. We did well. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about wings. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Okay, we're back. NBA draft wings. This is a weird wing class, is it not, Pennie? Because we were texting back and forth over the last, let's say 24 hours. And we were trying to figure out like what guys do we want to talk about here? What wings kind of fit the mold of potential first round picks? Because I think that that's what we want to stick to here. We want to talk about guys that have a chance to be first round picks. And we settled on a group, but I mean, like some of these guys, like I don't feel awesome about them.
Yeah, has the group settled on themselves yet? We have names. I think we changed 3 or 4 because we were supposed to record last week before my body shut down, and the names kind of changed a little bit. There's been like a game or two for each of them. There's a guy who I think has really stepped up. and there's about 6 or 7 that have just remained, I would argue, in neutral, if not going in reverse. So pair that with a weaker point guard class too. I know it's a big, heavy draft, but like we said, we're looking for the Jaylen Browns, we're looking for the Jason Tatums. Many teams try to build around that archetype of player. So who do we have right now that at least gets us somewhat excited, knowing they're going to be lottery picks, knowing they're going to be in the first round? May take some time to get better and be contributors, but they're certainly going to be called on draft night in the green room.
Okay, I will just start with this. Who is the best wing for you right now in the 2022 NBA draft?
Define best. Do you mean like
who is the one that you would take highest?
Gosh. Right, so
let's say they're all still on the board after, and this is not including Jabari Smith, who we think of as more of like a 4. I would understand if you want to include Jabari Smith here. We're choosing not to, but if we are, he would be very clearly the top 1. Not including Paulo Banchero, not including Chet Holmgren, not including Jaden Ivey, obviously. So who is your guy?
It's not my guy. I want to say Pat Baldwin Jr. I can't based on what we've seen. So I'd say for right now, as crazy it is to get here, I would say Ben Mathurin from Arizona.
Okay, that's an interesting answer. It wouldn't be my answer, but I do want to talk about Ben Mathurin. So give me some thoughts on Ben Mathurin here in terms of why you think he's the guy that you trust most, let's say maybe.
That's fair way of putting it.
Class. Yeah.
He's been really good lately. I mean, the tear he's been on has been noteworthy. He's hitting threes. He's keeping it simple. He's making better, quicker reads. I thought he had that true breakout game against Oregon State. He had 29 points, 6 rebounds. He was 11 for 18 from the field. He was 4 for 9 from 3. I liked how Arizona sped up Oregon State to force them into bad decisions. And the first couple of threes that he had were on fast breaks or in scramble situations, confidently caught it, knocked it down, no problem.
Yeah.
The numbers are a little funky when you dive in because he's a significantly better shooter when guarded versus unguarded. People say maybe throw that out, but it shows he's taking a lot of difficult shots at times. I do feel like he's tapered that off more than he had the first handful of games anyway. He's converted in transition too. Like these games, when you actually just watch the chopped up highlights, it looks like a package you'd see on draft night with him putting it behind his back and dunking and catching backdoor alley-oops. And then the next time out he hits a 3, then he does the 3 on the side of the head. So he believes in kind of the trajectory he's on. I am a little worried about the passing and the passing reads. He can be a blinders guy on the catch or when he turns the corner coming off screens. Like he's going to get Ben Mathurin. He's not kicking out a Tubelis who's spacing the floor or Tari who's opposite. He's going to attack and try to dunk and pull.
Yeah. And for what it's worth on that front too, I do think part of that is the scheme. You go back, you look at Gonzaga past, right? Their wings are more floor spacers than they are like playmakers and passers, right? Like they're play finishers, they're cutters, they're transition players. Like we talked at length last year about how Corey Kispert was the highest scoring transition player in college basketball last season. And new coach Tommy Lloyd obviously comes from 20 years at Gonzaga. They're running very similar stuff in terms of what Gonzaga has run under Mark Few. So I do think that it is worth contextualizing the passing a little bit. I agree with you. I think that you're absolutely right that Mathurin's passing needs to improve. But part of that I do think is schematic to an extent.
And it's just simplifying for him. It sounds strange, but I don't love it when he dribbles. He gets himself into trouble when he's bringing the ball up or anything beyond 2 or 3 dribbles in the half court. When he catches it on the wing, shot fake, 2 dribbles, hard pull up, cut opposite, he can get trapped and turn it over when he tries to do more than that. But when he does limit it, it's been pretty damn good. It has. I mean, he had the press break highlights, hitting threes with his feet set. He had a 2-hand alley-oop that he finished with still with one hand. It shows you the body control. He holds his ground on drives. So he's kind of going on the upward trajectory, for me anyway, when a lot of the other guys haven't really separated themselves from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, another thing that I'll mention too is that I'm comfortable with him dribbling more than twice, right? I just want it in a straight line.
Sure.
Right.
Like
that's the key. Yep. Like I think he's actually pretty good at stopping. He has like a good jump stop floater as well,
Yep.
like that I think is going to be a really effective shot for him at the next level whenever he has to attack closeouts. He's obviously a high level shooter. We believe in that skill set. Where are you on him defensively? Because that's where I can't. I think he's fine on defense.
Fine. Yeah.
I don't think he's like an elite level defender who's going to be like a high level impact guy in the NBA. I think he'll handle his position well. I think that like you're going to be able to switch him at the very least 1 through 3 right now. Maybe 4s later in his career, especially given the way that the 4 position is downsized. But I don't see him being like an impact defender either. I think he's just like a passenger is probably like too strong of a word defensively, because I don't think that he's going to hinder your defense, but I don't think he's going to hurt it, or I don't think he's going to like be the guy who lifts it either.
No, it's kind of just not indifference. That's a bad word, but he just needs to be a little bit more fundamentally sound. He is a gambles guy. He does want to get steals. He does want to have that highlight play out on the break, and it has to be just less of that. Rotation's a little bit better, a little bit tighter. They have some bigger games coming up too, so we'll be able to see it more. I'm hoping that the offense, not that it was ever off, but then he just had 28 or so against Tennessee the other night, and they got a tough whistle. I think he fouled out too. But he has more of those matchups coming up where hopefully he can build on some of the lukewarmish defensive efforts, pair it with the offense, and become this top 7-8 guy in the draft.
Okay. So I would have Ben Mathurin in the top 10 right now pretty easily. Like I'm with you on that. I would still take Kendall Brown right now.
Oh, let's do it. Let's dive in. I'm ready.
And I think that this is like a preference thing, right? More than it's like an eye of the beholder. What I like in terms of skill sets for the NBA as opposed to you. And I think that your case is totally reasonable as well, because both of these guys have flaws, like Ben Mathurin making passing reads, high level defensive effort. It's a concern, right? But his shooting is going to get him on the court immediately. Kendall Brown, I don't know where I stand on the shooting because he just doesn't really take them. Like he doesn't really look at the basket. So that's honestly like probably a good sign.
Scary
he's not
though.
a great shooter.
Yeah, we're talking top 5. He won't look at the hoop. Has to scare you a little bit. Has to give you some.
Oh, it terrifies the hell out of me. Absolutely terrifies me. But he does everything else. And this gets back to that idea. And maybe it's just like right now I'm so focused on this idea of like connective tissue players, right? And guys who scale, right? Like that's the thing. These guys who are multi-skilled and defend and pass and have a great feel for the game, they scale in the playoffs because you can trust them to make good decisions. You can trust them to make the right reads. You can trust them to defend multi-positions. You can just have faith in them. And this is a weird comparison, but like when I watch him, I see a lot of the things that have made Franz Wagner successful early this season so far.
Go on.
And he's much more athletic. He's much more explosive, but like he's a really good off-ball passer. And by that, I mean like he's a really smart cutter, and then he catches and he quickly surveys, or he is already surveyed before cutting and knows where his teammates are going to be. And he can make that quick touch pass, or he can make that like, you know, the next pass kick out after a baseline cut, right? He can also just like run a ball screen and make a reasonable pass. Like, I don't think he's, you know, a high level, unbelievable distributor as passer yet. And they rarely use him in that way. A lot of the time it's more like out in transition. He's making high level passing reads out in transition. A lot of that stuff was there with Wagner last year. A lot of that stuff I think is there with Kendall Brown this year. High level switchable defender. I have full faith that he's going to be really, really good on that end. Like when I see Kendall Brown, I see more of like Aaron Gordon than, you know, Sean Marion or something like that. Aaron Gordon is probably like a top, I don't know, 60, 70 player in the NBA. Definitely an above average starter, let's say. So at number 5, number 6, number 7 in this draft, I'm like pretty cool with that at this point. I know there are flaws. Like I said, he barely looks at the basket whenever he's shooting, or whenever he catches the ball in the corner. But like,
I mean, that's with Franz though. Franz 6'10" and moves. he's clearly not as athletic off the ground and by the rim, but I feel like his passes are a little bit crisper, a little bit sharper. And now we're talking about Franz Wagner's potential, at least in discussion, to be rookie of the year. I mean, he's put up multiple 25-point games. He looks like the guy that should have went, what it was, 5th overall and not 8th. Everything he did at Michigan has just been amplified in a good way. And now he's becoming sort of a takeover-ish guy with injuries and what have you and roster realignment. When Franz Wagner has a summer to work on his jumper, like, forget about it. He's going to be a potentially top 3 guy in that draft. Not hot take. We'll talk about that in a week when we talk about rookies. For Kendall Brown, the good here, what I like is he's a major part of one of the better college defenses in the country. Baylor is legitimately...
I think, for what it's worth, I think they are the best defense. I know that LSU right now is rated as the best defense, but put it this way, Baylor lost Mark Vital and Davion Mitchell and got better defensively because Kendall Brown and Jeremy Sohan and all of those guys came and allowed them to be more flexible. And I think that speaks to the value of positional size defensively in length and athleticism. Like, it is such an enormous benefit that Kendall Brown, like, to me, that is the difference between why I would take Kendall Brown over Johnny Davis. Like, it's much harder to be 6'5" and make a defensive impact than it is to be 6'8" and make a defensive impact like Kendall Brown can.
And that team, it's like a 40-minute shell drill of rotations, traps, forcing teams into bad situations. And for Kendall Brown specifically, he is like so bad. He's like a shark. Like, he always has to stay in motion. Like, he dies if he stops. He never stops. If you watch him, like, he's always moving. Offense, defense, foul called, whatever. It's like his feet are always moving. He's on the balls was in. He's bouncing around. He's trapping. He's running. He's cutting through. What I am concerned about, and what we talked about here a little bit, in the context of a top 10 pick, is the offense. Yes, he's shooting 70% from the field, like 71%. He's like second in the country, which is outrageous, but he doesn't look at the rim on the catch on many possessions. He doesn't try to create. Unless someone else is creating for him or he catches it versus shifting defense, he's going to reverse the ball almost as soon as he touches it. I mean, Baylor runs that high dribble weave, and he's content just weaving. Like, he'll just weave all day. Like, oh, here you go. Like, and then he'll wait and go back door. He's a great cutter, and he'll catch and dunk it. So because of this, his points per possession and his field goal percentage is through the roof. I mean, there's picking your spots, and there's whatever he does. I tweeted this last week. His shot chart is legitimately everything in the paint. He's taken like 10 3-pointers. He hasn't taken a mid-range jumper. So in terms of analytics darlings, I don't know if that's still like the en vogue thing. It seems like it changes by the minute sometimes with the NBA. I just, for top 5, top 6, until that offense gets there, I'm slow to say he's there for me. He's probably top 10-ish range. I'm not saying he's 35th or anything like that. I love the tools and what he brings to the table defensively. It's just, if I was like a contender, I'm trying to think of somebody who would like have a top 5 pick and just need like one connected piece. Good examples like Golden State. If Golden State had the picks they had last year, I would take him with that Kaminga pick. Like, no problem. Perfect. Like, just pass to Curry, Clay, Poole, Draymond, whatever. Like, connect it, play defense. Perfect. But for the teams that are there right now and I don't have it in front of me, I'd want more of like a foundational offensive guy to get my team going. Yeah,
I get that. Like, I think that that's all totally reasonable and rational. Like, I don't have defense against that. Like, I would love to not take Kendall Brown at number 5. Also, I don't know who the other guys are. You know, that's the problem.
I don't either. I had no prep for who you're going to say the top wing is, because there's not this hit over the head. Like, how did you miss this guy? It's not.
Well, and here's the guy that I think we're hoping. We're hoping it's AJ Griffin, right? Like, he's made strides over the last, I don't know, what do you want to say, 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks
up until Duke has had these like few cancellations here recently. He has still played like 1/3 of Duke's minutes this year, but against Virginia Tech, like, he went 4 from 2-point range, had 13 points, had 4 rebounds, had a block and a steal. Against South Carolina State, he was phenomenal. He went like 7 of 8 from the field, had 4 assists. He had 19 points. Lafayette, he had 18 points. Like, there are signs there that AJ Griffin is getting very comfortable with college basketball. And I think we all hope that AJ Griffin is the guy that leaps into this range.
Could
I
be.
think it'd be pretty hard to take him above 9 or 10 right now.
Yeah, there's a loud contingent on draft Twitter that still has him in the top 5. I think right now is crazy until he shows more, because he has beat up on guys, with the exception of like Virginia Tech. He's beat up on guys in garbage time. There's 5 minutes left. Go nuts. Hit 4 threes. Go 7 for 9. Go dunk on the second team guys. He was much better in that VTech game, cutting. I said this the other day too. He kind of has like this pro package of moves, like workout moves. I don't mean that as a negative, where he catches it. It's a shot fake. It's an extension for one hard dribble. It's a pull up. He balances really well. When he gets in the air, he squares himself up. He has pop off the floor. We also can't discount that this kid hasn't played a ton of reps of basketball. His junior year in high school, he got injured in January. He's out for the rest of the year. His senior year of high school, the state of New York doesn't play till February. He shuts it down because of an ankle injury. He goes and trains with his dad, Adrian Griffin, assistant coach of the Raptors, in Tampa, because that's where the Raptors were working out and playing, because they couldn't go back and forth to Canada. And then he gets to Duke and he's injured. So he's playing from behind. He's clearly building up trust with his teammates, with his coaches. He's getting his legs under him. And when he gets more minutes, you could see more. But we're not there yet. If he does this in ACC play and strings together a bunch of 15-point games, and he's kind of taking on more of the offensive scoring load from the wing, from like a Wendell Moore, we can have this conversation. I think it's a little bit premature to say that he's going to be a top 7, 10-ish guy.
Well, and like this is where the whole like draft Twitter, like having no consequences thing comes up, right? Like there is no consequence for someone random on the internet to say, oh yeah, like I would take AJ Griffin 3rd right now.
Right.
There is not an NBA executive that would take AJ Griffin in the top 4 right now.
Oh,
there just isn't.
I don't think so. And he passes the look test. He looks like a superhero. He's 6'6". He's chiseled out of granite. The jumper is a little weird. He has a wide base on his jumper, but he seems okay with it, like a muscle memory thing. He can power his way into the lane. It's consistency. It's staying locked in, making meaningful minutes, playing more than 5 minutes a night, which is a little bit out of his hands. But I thought he would be like the number 2 with Paolo Banchero at Duke. That's a little bit Trevor Keels, a little bit Wendell Moore. But there's certainly a chance for him to catapult back up here. Don't know if it's a 1-year, 2-year thing. Not writing him off, but he still has to answer some questions.
Yeah, and frankly, like if someone wants to rank AJ Griffin at 5, I would disagree with that right now, but I would at least understand the concept of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, we get it. Like, coming out of high school, what do we have, 10th, 12th? Like, somewhere around there. It's not this crazy thing of this unranked kid. Like, he had a lot of fans. He had some critics in high school that ranked him a little bit lower, and rightfully so. He didn't play. He didn't play basically for 2 years. He didn't play in the summer, didn't play in the spring. So you only have what you see. If you don't see a guy, so you're not penalizing him for being hurt, but you are penalizing a little bit because he hasn't been seen. You don't know if he's gotten better or if he's fallen off. And he's somewhere in the middle. He's building himself back up. He has a skill package and the background, the bloodlines to make it. But you got to make it. You got to do it. You got to take the next step.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to just do something quick on Johnny Davis? I talked about Johnny Davis for probably 6 minutes on the last podcast because I got a question about it. I don't think I need to dive super deep into him. I would have him somewhere in the 9 to 14 range right now. I'll just kind of give you the floor because listeners of the last show, you guys can go back. You can listen to the question I got on the solo mailbag episode about Johnny Davis if you want my opinion. I just don't need to rehash it again. I'll give Matt the floor because I think Matt even is a little bit higher on him than I am.
Yeah, I love Johnny Davis. I sort of had him as a sleeper the first week of the season, but now we're talking about top 10. I don't know how much we're sleeping on him. I like the scoring. He is a 3-level scorer. We can come off screens and get to the rim, has some pop in the lane, has a good pull-up jumper, can hit threes. He's delivered. He was MVP of the Maui Invitational. Doesn't shy away from the moment. I feel like he's on this path to continue to get better. It's the same thing with guys like AJ Griffin. Like if this continues and we see 10 more games like this and he runs through the Big Ten, totally be on board. I'm hesitant. I am a very big fan of who he is. Don't know how much switchability at 6'5". Like, he's not the Kendall Brown guy that can guard all the way up the lineup. Is very strong, is a hard worker. He was on the Under Armour circuit, so I saw him kind of grow up there and how he's added to his game. Keeps getting better. So a guy that I really like and keep an eye on. But I'm similar with you, sort of that 8 to 12-ish range right now.
Okay. Let's talk about Trevor Keels real quick and just kind of, because to me, he's more. Look, I've talked to some NBA teams that have him like late lottery. I've talked to some teams that have him more in the 20s. This is where we start getting into like that range of guys where there is no consensus. And obviously, I think AJ Griffin fits that billing. I've talked to NBA teams that have Johnny Davis as like a 20s guy or as a mid first round guy. I've talked to a couple that think he's a lottery guy, like you and I do. Ochai Agbaji, we're going to talk about momentarily. I've talked to a couple of teams that think mid first round. I've talked to a couple of teams that think like late 20s for him. So we're into that lack of consensus area for the wings. So I will give you the floor on Trevor Keels, who it's taken me a while to warm to. I would say, and I'm not sure I'm totally there yet.
How warm's the water? Is it warm enough? You jumping in, or still just kind of dipping your toes?
Dipping the toes, I think, because here's the thing: like every NBA person that I've talked to is just like, "Oh no, we think he's going to shoot. Like, don't worry about the percentages. Like, don't worry about him shooting 31% on high volume right now. He'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Like, he'll shoot." I think I'm less sold on that than many are.
Yeah.
At least at the level that I think he'll need to shoot to be like a great player.
I thought he looked like a world beater opening night versus Kentucky, where he had 25 points on 10 of 18 shooting and locked down Ty Washington. And I thought of myself as an idiot because we didn't even like really mention him in the first wave of guys, just always slaughtered him as a 2 to 3 year player. Had some injury stuff in high school. Had to get back in shape, and you don't know with those guys. It's similar to the AJ Griffin story. You don't know where they end up. They get to do the college campus. He's still been solid. He has. He's like 41% from the field, up and down from threes in the low 30s. He knows how to use his body to score. He makes that first bump pre-cut or pre-post catch to catch his man off balance a little bit, which is very smart, very savvy. As good as he's been with his style and that type of play, he's going to have to add a little bit more finesse because the battering ram drives haven't proven to be the most translatable in the NBA. Now, if you're 6'8" and you're doing that and leaning in, sure. At his size and the jumper is still at 30-ish%, no. Am I overthinking that at all? Because he is listed at 6'3", 220 pounds. We just talked about how much we like Marcus Smart, who has similar measurables. But I'm not on the crazy train here saying like the shot, the finesse, something has to get there in order for him to be in the lottery conversation.
I think Marcus Smart is probably an inch and a half taller.
Yep.
And drastically more athletic. Like not
sure. But my point is more like that build, like that type of structural shoulders and wider base and
like to me it's more like Eric Gordon almost. And like Eric Gordon was like better shooter, number one player in the country out of high school, a lot more finesse also, by the way. Like to me though, like the Eric Gordon pathway, mid-career Eric Gordon after he had lost some of the athleticism following the knee injuries, like that's more the pathway for Trevor Keels, just due to the lack of like elite level explosiveness,
right,
and the lack of finesse right now. But again, like Eric got a lot of finesse at like a certain point. Like he was very skilled,
and was a killer in the corners in that Houstan series with what Golden State, where they're an injury away from making the finals. And with Keels, I'll say this too: he does have some touch on the move. He does have a floater.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to use that more often in the eyes of scouts. The shot has been falling. You can tell he knows it. He's not going to search for threes. He can get himself going with mid-range pull-ups. He gets the free throw line. A guy on the floor. He's a winner. He defends. I don't fear him being there in crunch time. But if we're talking top 10, similar to the offensive concerns we have other guys, he has to bump his percentages, and the shot has to fall. He did in high school. It'll get there, just not right now.
Yeah, like I would say like late teens for me right now.
Yeah,
on Trevor
I'm
Keels.
somewhere around there. I think early 20s. I don't have it pulled up right now, but that's a comfortable range. I don't necessarily think he's a top 10 guy. He has leapfrogged some of these freshmen that haven't necessarily produced once it got into early
Yeah,
kind of conference-ish play or bigger time matchups. But yeah, probably would be nice 2-year guy. But this is a crazy draft. Is this draft also shaping up to be like the, oh my god, that guy went 7th? Oh, I can't believe he went 11th. Or does this kind of like, by the time we're done here in March, it becomes more of a structured, this guy's here, this guy's there? Or is it so much uncertainty that like we don't even know really what's going to happen past, say, 5?
I think we're gonna see more certainty later in the process. Like, and by later in the process, I mean like later in the college basketball season, because teams will start traveling, I think, more and more to these tournaments where they can knock out like 8 games or 8 players at once, right? SEC tournament, ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, etc. Right? Um, until then, I think we're gonna see like the epitome of, oh my god, this guy had a great NCAA tournament and he jumped up the board, right? Like I think we're gonna see a lot of that this year.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, which look like I think that those games should matter more than a regular season game, but not overreacting to them is also critical. And we will see how much overreaction occurs. I think that's where I'm at.
Fair.
Okay. Ochai Agbaji, we've talked a lot about Ochai this year. I don't know that we need to like belabor it. I would have him, similar range to Keels. I think he's a better athlete than Keels. I think he is a more switchable defender, and I buy him more as a shooter. I think the floor is higher for Ochai Agbaji than it is for Trevor Keels. I think that the ceiling is probably higher for Keels just because he's a better passer, seems to have a real sense of like feel for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I still worry about that just a little bit with Ochai, but I am generally sold on Ochai Agbaji being a terrific 7th man in the NBA.
Ooh, yeah. You don't want your 7th man to go 13th. I was in
You know what though? Like, look, I think that that's okay if he does. Like in this class, maybe my expectations are so low for this class where I'm like, oh yeah, like he'll be like a good 7th man. And look, like he could be more than that. Like he could be a great 5th starter, but that's the range I see for him. And like nobody complains that Cam Johnson went, I think he went 13th, right?
Yeah, that's a good age comparison type thing too. So the ageist out there don't draft old. They did, and he's been really good. Just you know what you're getting for Ochai. He's been everything we asked, everything to do when he returned to school. He's delivered, and then some.
Yep.
Consistency across the board, far more locked in, possession to possession, not nearly as many lapses as we saw before. He's shooting 57% from the field, 49% from 3. Even if the 3-point number is a little bit of fake life as it can be this early in the season, it's an improvement trajectory. It's gone from 31% to 34% to 38% to where we're at now. Points are up, rebounds are up. He's had 20 plus points in 7 of their 10 games. He's hitting threes. He's scoring on the break. He's making guys pay when they go under on screens. The handle looks a little bit better. He doesn't really play outside of himself. When he drives now, it's with much more belief and conviction. He's not looking for that relief valve as he's going to kick out. And more than most times, defensively, he's in a stance and help away from the ball. Can close out too hard. At times, he does have that kind of tendency and overcommit. But at his size and athletic ability, he's able to switch. He's able to grab the lineup. He's a little bit older. If we evaluate him in a vacuum, does he look like a borderline lottery pick? I would say yes, I would. And there's different schools of thought. If you take a younger guy like a Trevor Keels, or you take a sort of this is what you're getting with Ochai, and it's like Indiana. You take Chris Duarte, you know what you're getting. Like, do you do it again? Now you're blowing it up and you want to develop? I don't know. But there'll be a franchise that's intrigued enough for how he's gotten better and say, like, that's a guy that maybe he's a 7th man, but like a really good one.
Okay. Next up is who did we want to bring up? We wanted to talk about like MarJon Beauchamp. Another guy that I would have in the 20s somewhere. I worry a little bit too much about the jumper, but and the passing as well, like just the offensive skill level. But I love the defense. I love the energy. I love the athleticism. Great frame. There's, some real interest there. Like he's probably, I don't know. I would say Dyson Daniels is my favorite Ignite guy, like pretty clearly right now. And then would you rather have MarJon Beauchamp or Jaden Hardy? I feel like it's actually a question for me now.
It is. And he made a lot of fans during that G League showcase, and I was not there. It was just NBA people and select media, and I thought I'd get more questions about Jaden Hardy afterwards, and more people were asking, what's Marshall?
I've gotten a lot of questions about Jaden Hardy.
Yeah. Well, different kind of questions, but people are more like, what's MarJon Beauchamp's story? He was kind of like this late addition to the G League. He bounced around high school. He was just going to train. He went to junior college. It's not last chance you, but he kind of ended up there and started to believe, like a lot of these guys, in himself and that he can play at that level. He's 6'6". He has good length, and he's one of these not super connector guys. So I think our definitions are a little bit different. But he's this third, fourth guy on the floor where if you sleep on him, he's going to make you pay. He's going to cut and score. He's going to take it off the dribble. He's a great offensive rebound tip dunk guy. He's a high-level garbage man. I mean that as a compliment. 57% from the field, 3-point percentage, not great, 24%. That has to go up. 1.5 steals per game. And he just makes his impact by staying out of the way. And we talked about Jaden Hardy, and he can get dribble heavy. He just knows where to rotate and to move. And if and when Hardy ever passes, he's ready to catch and dunk and finish. I think he's a high-level cleanup guy on the glass. He's a great piece somewhere. Don't know if there's necessarily star upside. There is a lot of contributor upside to what he does, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, I think he's going to be a solid contributor, eighth man again. This is the range we're looking at, right? I like MarJon Beauchamp in like a similar capacity to, like, here's a good question. Would you rather MarJon Beauchamp or Herb Jones last year?
Herb Jones. I just think Herb Jones is a killer.
I had Herb Jones in the first round, and I would rather have Herb Jones. But I think that's the range. Like, I think it's like later first round, early 20s, something like that.
Yeah, 25, 35-ish.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't really want to belabor the Jaden Hardy thing because he might not be good.
We're talking wings today. He is not a wing.
Yeah, we're not. Let's go Wendell Moore next. I have Wendell Moore as like a top 40 guy. I think you're a little bit higher. We probably could have done the Duke guys like all together and knocked them out, I guess.
I didn't know if you're going there. He was underneath, but I didn't know where you're going.
Yeah, for as much as planning has improved on this podcast, as much of things stay the same, I guess, right?
It's a process. It's a journey.
Yeah, Wendell Moore is now shooting 41% from three after having made, I believe it's like 7 of 10 over his last 3 games. Mm-hmm. If you take those 3 away, I think he's down around his career average of like 31% from three. I still just don't totally buy the jump shot. I'm willing to be swayed over the course of this year. I would love to see him knock down, catch and shoot shots. If he continues to knock down, catch and shoot shots, I think that he is absolutely a first round pick. If he does not, I have real worries about the shooting and lack of athleticism combination as it moves forward. Like his swing skill is the shooting. He has to shoot. Otherwise, I think he's going to have problems doing anything else on offense in the NBA.
I've waited for the dip to happen this season, and it hasn't. He's been really good. He's had double figures every game, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 steals versus Gonzaga, 58% from the field. His points are up from almost 10 to 17. His assists of doubles, he's playing on the ball a lot, running some of Duke's offense and pulling back out and resitting. Is there something in the water that him and Caleb Love had in the offseason to erase the previous season? Because he seems like one of these, like, I don't know if the analogy I want to make is like Memento or the Men in Black, like buzzer, but it's like you're removing that whole season and it's back to kind of the player we thought they'd be. He's a high percentage finisher around the basket. I think he shoots a pretty clean ball right now when he doesn't rush it. Spots and corners, knocks down open looks, scores on the break. much better off the dribble than he was last season. Handle is still a little bit loose. Like it can be poked out. It can be a little prone to some turnovers here and there. Another 1.5 steals per game type of player. I like him as a rotational guy. I think late-ish, first round, if he stays where he's at, maybe 20-ish, beauty in the eye of the beholder type deal. But he's at least solidified himself as part of this group that we're talking about for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have much to add to that. I think I worry a little bit more about the jumper than you do. I don't love how long it takes him to load into it. I think that is a very real concern, and playing teams that aren't wildly athletic and aren't rushing to close out on him, I think really helps him quite a bit right now. But if he can shoot, then he is again in that eighth man boat that we've been talking about with all these wings. If he doesn't shoot, his handle isn't good enough to consistently break down defenders and play on the ball. He's not explosive enough athletically to make that work. So I just worry about what the role would be offensively, but I like him a lot defensively. I think he makes really good gambles. I think he makes timely gambles is a good way to put it. He stays solid whenever he has to stay solid. He's long, he's strong. I've always liked Wendell Moore, even going back to high school. I really liked him the first time I saw him at Pangos. God, maybe back in 2017, I would venture that was. I've always been kind of in. I didn't love the first 2 years, obviously.
No, not many people did.
But we'll see. I mean, okay, freshman quick dive here.
We have
Harrison Ingram, Max Christie, Peyton Watson, Bryce McGowens, Caleb Houstan. Over under 2.5 of those guys emerging into one and dones that leave and go in the first round.
Ooh, that's a good line.
Yeah.
Now the emerging is the word, because I think some of those guys might be one and done and may not emerge. So I'll take the over, just because I think a lot of those guys will declare, and somebody in that 25 to 30 range we've talked about that's so coveted. Well, someone take a swing. They'll take a gamble. You're a contender. Draft them, put them in the G League, get them better. I have no inside information here. I'm guessing Max Christie goes back to school. He's averaging 9 points per game, but just hasn't really lived up to the heavy preseason hype and billing. Doesn't seem like he's in a rush to leave. Bryce McGowens
was great against Oakland and has shown flashes against Louisville and against Butler, but I would venture he's probably the most likely to go back of this crew.
Bryce McGowens, I mean, he had 29 and 26 his first 2 games and leveled off. He was okay against NC State, went to 100 overtimes. I watched that and missed a big free throw down the stretch, but just hasn't been super efficient. I'd like to see him go back.
Let's just take them one at a time. I think he's been not good against good teams.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, the numbers don't lie with that one.
Yeah. So against Creighton, 6 points on 3 of 10 shooting, 3 fouls, was basically a non-factor. The NC State game, look, he did have 24 points and 9 rebounds, but he also took 7 free throws and 23 shots to get there in 4 overtimes, right? Yep. Not the most efficient game. Against Indiana, 3 for 14, 3 turnovers. Against Michigan, he goes 2 for 9. Against Auburn, he goes 4 for 12 for 14 points. Got to the line 7 times, which is good, but still not a particularly efficient game. 4 for 14 against Kansas State. So far this season against tier A and B competition, according to KenPom, that's 5 games. He is 2 for 21 from 3. A lot of those shots are pull-ups. He's playing next to Alonzo Verge, who is a ball hog and is a tough player to watch play. I get it, but at some point he's going to have to produce. He's going to have to be efficient and showcase that he can make the impact that his potential as a ball handler and as a creator that we all think he has.
Yes, it's hard to, because with injuries, with his brother breaking his foot and Wilhelm Breedenbach is out for the year. it's not the easiest schedule and easiest thing to do as a freshman who probably wasn't prepared for this crazy spotlight. But when you come out the gates with 2 25-point games, the spotlight's on you, and it's just been a struggle.
Well, and NBA scouts really liked him too coming into the year. Like, I don't even think it was like he consolidated that with the first couple of games, and now playing real teams, it has been a problem.
Yes.
And we'll see where it goes from here. I think he has a chance to be a one and done. I don't think he would go in the first round based off of his performances right now. But that could change by mid-year, by the end of the year even.
Yep.
Peyton Watson has a 34.5 true shooting percentage, a 20% turnover rate, is 1 for 10 from 3 this year, and shooting 35% from 2-point range.
He has not had a field goal in a month.
Yeah, if there's one guy who needs to go back, it might not be Max Christie. It might need to be Peyton Watson.
Yeah, if he's drafted in the first round, which is possible, we've seen crazier things, it's because a team believes in him as this domestic draft and stash. They believe in him as this pre-draft guy based on his high school stuff, based on his tape from USA basketball, based on preseason workouts, based on going to UCLA and actually evaluating him alongside Johnny Juzang and Jaime Jaquez and all their other prospects, but it's not based on what's going on the court. I think Mick Cronin and his staff has given him some opportunities. It's tough to crack a lineup when you have your whole starting 5 returning to school, plus you're adding Miles Johnson, and you're a freshman. You need to build some level of trust. Outside that Bellarmine game, it just hasn't been enough for me to pique my interest.
Garrison Ingram has probably been the most effective out of these guys this year, I would say. Bryce McGowens had a couple of effective games, but like Harrison Ingram had 15 against Texas, had 19 against like a good Santa Clara team, had 16 against Oregon, and was excellent in that win for Stanford. I still am pretty worried about the lack of shooting. Personally, he's shooting 31% from 3 so far, and is just like not a crazy athlete. And he's 6'8", which really helps, but he's going to have to shoot it. Like, that's purely what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah, he has skill at his size. It's that percentage will get better with fewer of these desperation shots late in the shot clock. And he had the one-man rally of 7 straight points against Dartmouth to put him into overtime. Like, he has that. He has that in him. Like, he scored. It was 2 2-point field goals and a 3, and then they went in OT. The best part for me is the passing. It's the 4-ish assists per game. Away from the ball, he's still directing traffic. You can tell he has a good sense and feel of spacing, where guys are supposed to be. Can do a little bit of work out of pick and roll. I know that there's some land mammal-ish concerns, like his feet aren't the quickest. Offensively, I do feel he could be comfortable on NBA floor right now. I am worried about how he moves and switches at 6'8". I mean, that's not great size for a 3, really, based on the foot speed. So who's he guard, who's he defend? It would have to be some defensive scheme where they're covering for him when he's beat off the dribble.
Yeah, I think his pathway is becoming an elite shooter. Like that's just what he has to do. He has to work as hard as he can over the next 2 years on being as good of a shooter as he can be. Do we have one more guy in this group?
Caleb Houstan.
Caleb Houstan. Yeah, he had a couple really good games. The San Diego State game I thought was really good. And then what was the other one? He had one other one that I thought was good. It was the next one.
Tarleton State. I don't know who was the next one. He played well against Tarleton State.
Yeah, no, it was Nebraska. He was good in the Nebraska game as well, because I watched that game for the Caleb Houstan, Bryce McGowens.
Yep.
And yeah, he had 16 points. He made 4 of 7 from 3. He had 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Like, I think he's solidified himself a little bit more than this group in general. Like, I would say that I would pretty comfortably take him in the 20s, maybe even in the late teens now. But again, like, you're still worried about lack of athleticism and shooting concerns. But I feel a little bit more confident about his shooting after what we've seen over the last month.
I don't know. I don't know how to differentiate these 6 for 10, 6 for 9 games from the field versus the 2 for 7s and 2 for 9s where he's invisible at times. Yeah. And I'm worried about like the pre-shot mechanics, the speed of it.
Yeah.
When he comes off screens, and even if it's a screen, it's a pin down, he comes up, like that defender catches up with him pretty often. and like blocks a shot, alters his shot. Like that shouldn't happen at his size and what you need to be in the NBA, because those defenders only get faster, longer. Like it's not going to be easier path than what it is right now. And if those shots aren't falling, what else is he doing? Because he doesn't have necessarily like the offensive creator connector chops that Franz Wagner has in that role. And it's a little bit difficult when you're playing with Hunter Dickinson, you're playing Moussa Diabate. So you're more of a 3 than a stretch 4. So that's what my concern is. It's gotten better. It has, but there hasn't been enough flashes for me to say like, yeah, this is a big shooter who's going to be able to get it off, hit it consistently, and let's take him 15th.
So I guess that like my question is, how much of the conversation with Caleb Houstan is due to our preconceived notions of Caleb Houstan coming into the year and people having him as a lottery pick versus Harrison Ingram, where we had him like in the top 40, right?
Sure.
Because like, I wonder if that burden of expectations has made us reduce what Caleb Houstan has done and almost elevate what Harrison Ingram has done. Because like I would still pretty comfortably take Caleb Houstan just based off what we've seen this year, even from those two. And that's not to say that Harrison Ingram's been bad or anything. I just think that Caleb Houstan, like the flashes he showed against San Diego State, the flashes against Nebraska, you brought up the Tarleton State game, like, whatever, right?
Get your reps up.
But from that November 24th game against Tarleton State, through the game against Southern Utah, he hasn't had fewer than 8 points in a game. He's been in double figures for half of those games. Like he's figuring it out. I think that by the end of the year, we're going to look and Caleb Houston's probably going to end up being fine.
Yeah, he had a good summer with the Canadian national team, and he did not have a good shooting summer, but he did everything else well. He passed well, he rebounded well, he ran the offense. So I thought the shooting would come around, pair it with what that's there at 6'8" 6'9". That's great, intangible size, whatever you want to deem it, as a wing in the NBA. The shot's not there. He's not doing as much creation stuff. Not really being asked to do as much creation stuff.
Yeah,
that's why I've taken pause with it.
Okay, let's shift the order of our final two segments here, because I think that it just matches a little bit better because we're both talking about wings in our prospect of the week segment. And I think that it makes more sense just to, finalize this whole segment here. We're going inception segment within a segment, essentially. Talking about two wings that we really, really like. We didn't mention Blake Wesley. We talked about Blake Wesley a couple weeks ago. He was your game theory prospect of the week, then went out and made the game winner against Kentucky.
Boom.
I think Blake Wesley probably would go in the first round right now if he declared. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'd say late first. I didn't start this train by any means, but he's gained and added more fans since hitting that game winner where he was on all scouts lists. I mean, I went to shoot around at BC. There was NBA teams there watching him. Like, it's not like it was this total surprise. But when you have the Stones to hit the game winner, and that first game he played against Illinois, he had like 25 or something. So he's creating a nice little resume for himself as a shot creator. It's the shot is a little bit funky. Like I think that's kind of making NBA teams say, well, let's see a little bit more. But I'd feel fine slotting him late first round if he went right now.
Yeah.
Love for him to go back to school. Another guy too.
Yeah, and look, like he's another guy too, where he's probably more of a guard, to be honest, than a wing.
Right.
Like, he had 9 assists against Texas Corpus Christi. He often plays like the lead guard for Notre Dame at this point. But you just look, I mean, he's been in double figures literally every single game since their second game in Maui. And he's 6'5". He's a real half-court shot creator. I think he probably goes in the first round if he was to declare and continues this level of play up. But let's go to the game theory NBA draft prospects of the week. Pennie, you as always get the floor to go first.
So gracious of you. My game theory podcast prospect of the week is Aminu Muhammad from Georgetown. I feel like the buzz has grown since the last week when I had him here, and now I'm not trying to make it a trendy pick, but when you watch him, he epitomizes a power guard for me. It's going to be guard wing, but he's 6'5", 210 pounds, really smash mouth, in your face, attacking style of basketball. The only real stinker he had was 0 for 10 against St. Joe's. He's been better than 50% from the field the 4 games that followed that. He's a grinder on the glass. He battles for second chance opportunities. He can score after he secures a rebound. Can be a little bit of an offensive adventure when he has time to create. There's some crazy passes in there, so some drives, throwing himself into the trees in the middle. Despite the numbers and the touch on his release for a shot, he's nowhere near the point of me trusting the jumper. I know it's like not a great sell, but when he gets to his move, he's going and he's scoring. And he's putting his shoulders into you, and it almost feels like he's going to get 2 shots when he falls with a miss. I don't think that he's going to go out there and bail out. He's not. He's going through your body. He's going to the rim, and he might drag you with him as he goes.
Well, I think there's a great prospect comparison. It's just in the last few years for him.
Shoot,
Lou Dort. Like
I mean,
it reminds me of.
Then defensively, he can be a dog. I mean, I'd like to see more time, more seasoning to that offensive skill set, and it's not always going to be like the prettiest out there. But a player that I like on the floor. Like I like him contribute to winning. I love his intensity. I love his approach, how he works for his points, how he works for his rebounds, how he really sits down and defends. He's been a bright spot in an up and down Georgetown team, and I like where he's going. He had a lot of NBA fans at the Elite 100 a couple of years ago, and now he's like on the scene and living up to those expectations.
Yeah, like everything about Aminu Muhammad as a prospect reminds me of the Lou Dort like prospect experience. He is 6'4", 6'5", 210 pounds, super strong, super physical, about a year older than his draft class or than his recruiting class, because he's already 20, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Super physical, super strong, very aggressive on the glass, very tough. Like you said, at the point of attack, an absolute dog defensively. Fights his ass off, goes through dudes like it's nothing. Like to me, like everything from his prospect profile ticks the Lou Dort boxes for me. The one thing I will say is that I think Lou was a little bit better of like a passer / they could play him at point in a pinch. I don't love when Aminu Muhammad is like initiating the offense for Georgetown. I think that they're much better when it's someone like Dante Harris or like one of those guys, but there are a lot of boxes I think across the board that tick the like Lou Dort starter kit maybe.
I like that
for Aminu Muhammad.
And he pulls up guys to play at his intensity level too. He's not one of these guys where if it's a little flat, he gets flat too. It's like, I'm going to be in 100. If you guys don't want to be 100 with me, that's fine, but I'm going 100. So if he's Lou Dort, that's probably the ceiling. I mean, I think Lou Dort's a incredible NBA player. It'd be hard for me to not
a borderline
imagine
starter in the NBA.
Right. It'd be hard for me to not see him on an NBA roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would have Aminu Muhammad as a top 45 guy right now, like pretty easily. Where would you have him?
Yeah, I haven't even like really slaughtered him there. It's more of like I want to do more research. If I had to put him somewhere right now, I'd put him in top 40 for sure.
Yeah, just the athleticism, strength, like play hard combination, I think is real.
And just have to speed up the jumper a little bit too. Like the jumper, like I know the numbers. He's shooting like 50% of the field. Not taking a ton of them, but a couple a game. But if that goes there with everything else, it's a nice little starter kit to start off your offensive experience.
Yeah. Okay, so my prospect of the week is Tari Eason out of LSU. This is someone that, like, honestly, he missed their last game, so like it has nothing to do with like, oh my God, he was incredible in their last game. It's just someone that we need to talk about on some level. Mm-hmm. Like we just haven't found that to talk about Tari Eason on the show, and I want to do so because I think he is like a very real prospect. He is 6'8", 220 pounds, let's say, something in that range. Super athlete and gets the most out of that athleticism. He is a very reactive basketball player. Maybe not super athlete. Maybe that's the wrong way to put it. It's more gets the most out of the athleticism that he has and is like a legit NBA level athlete. And it's because of the way he just sees the floor is remarkable in a lot of different ways, right? He is a really smart cutter. He is a like reasonable enough passer, I would say, but like where the impact comes is on defense. Like,
yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen a player this year who is quite as impactful to his team's bottom line defensively as Tari Eason is. He's switchable. He's a terrific help defender. He's just all over the court everywhere that you see him. And he is the critical reason, I think, why LSU has the number one defense in college basketball right now, according to Ken Pom. To me, he's a defensive difference maker. Now, the real question here is the jumper, right? Like, I think that there's touch there. I don't hate the shooting mechanics even. Like, he's shooting, I think, like right around 80% from the foul line.
Mm-hmm.
It's a low release, and it's not like it's even hitchy. It's just a low release that has like a weird load into it. And I think that there's actual touch on display within the jumper, but the mechanics are so inconsistent in terms of how he gets into it that the results are just not there. Like, I think that there's a chance that he can be a shooter in time. I would have a late first round grade on Tari Eason, at the very least top 40 guy, but probably more in that late first round range.
Yeah, I'm late first round too. I liked him out of high school. As a junior, he was at Federal Way High School in Washington, which is the same high school team as Jaden McDaniels.
Yep.
I piqued my interest a little bit as a prospect at Cincinnati. I didn't know the jump would be so mammoth between a transfer in a year. He's doubled his points, 16 a clip, 7.4 rebounds, 1.7 steals, 1.4 blocks at 6'8". And I also think he plays bigger than 6'8". He skies off the floor. Then the fluidity off the dribble allows him to exploit mismatches on the perimeter. He's always had the pick and pop, catch, and two dribble game in his bag. And he's not this battering ram that once he gets to his move, he has touch with a floater. He maneuvers really well. Like, he has twinkle toes for someone who's big and strong. Like the high school scout, and I went through my old notes, he's still very right-handed, like almost comically so. Like, instead of crossing to his left to like back up more to his right, then go back to his right again, he still gets it off. Not a true shooter from distance. I think it's sort of like a push shot, almost like a grenade launcher off his shoulder.
Yeah.
It
It's a
can
trebuchet.
Sure. The misses are off target when he misses. There's a lot of backroom, side room stuff. I don't think it's beyond repair at his size, at being 6'8", as much as we just say he plays bigger than that. He's going to have to shoot it a little bit. The energy rebounds won't be the same clip versus NBA size. We may point to a guy like sort of Isaiah Stewart and say that it's possible for him to use that size, use that height, not necessarily the rebounder, but be able to make it work. I like his defense a lot. I like the switchability. He moves his feet, he makes contact, protects the rim. I'm intrigued. I kind of have him in the like 20-ish range, higher than 40, and let's see more. I have my fingers crossed because Wednesday, LSU plays Auburn. That will be a mammoth of a test.
Yep.
Let's knock on wood here. That doesn't get shut down between him and Jabari Smith, potential number one pick in the draft. And that'll be a real barometer to say if he shows up and shows out there, he's going to skyrocket.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that this is a good time to talk about him because of that game that we hope happens. How bummed are you in general too? Like it's just like hard for me to get excited about like these games right now, just because like I don't know who the fuck's going to play.
Well, I make usually on Sundays I make my watch list of games. I just click through every day and write it down. And I just feel like I got a list that I keep crossing out names, like
I know, right?
Steve Buscemi and Billy Madison or whatever. It's just, that one's gone. Delete that. That one's gone. And I'm not you can't like add new ones either. It's like the high major game's happening or it's not. I'm not dumpster diving into some weirdo offshoot game that I don't have to watch. But there's a couple Saturday. So Wednesday and Saturday should be good games. I mean, I have LSU, Auburn. I don't think Tennessee, Alabama has been canceled yet. Let's knock on wood. I mean, Saturday's Baylor, Iowa State. I think Villanova, Seton Hall. That might be canceled. I don't know. I can't keep up. It's a bummer, but I like the world to heal a little bit before we jump back in.
Okay, mailbag section, which we need to come up with a name for this at some point. By the way,
we do.
We'll start
crowdsource it.
Yeah, we'll start bouncing names this week over text message. Okay, from Country Billy at Dan Soch. Would you rather have Darius Garland and Evan Mobley or John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. as your core going forward?
You're starting with this one. I've wrestled with this question. I think we've sat on for a little bit, and I've waited for it to like erase because I don't think there's a right answer. So I'm gonna start with you.
It's an unreal question. It's an unreal question.
Because does it also mean like on that team, or we're starting a new franchise? Are we saying like, do you prefer Cleveland?
I think we're starting new.
Okay.
Like I think it's like not on that roster because like look, if it was,
and are we also saying full health, like full health, no health issues, no nagging stuff for Jaren, no nagging stuff for Darius, like we're good.
Yeah, we'll say that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, like look, like if it was in team context, I probably would take Memphis and take the Morant and Triple J combination. I think that if we're separating the two out, if we're saying like just this core, just this duo, I think I would take Evan Mobley and Darius Garland because I think I would take Mobley over all four of them.
Ooh, I like that.
I think that Mobley is the highest upside player of that foursome.
Games on the line. It's the fourth quarter. You're in the NBA playoffs. It's game 6. Do you trust it throwing it into Evan Mobley in the post?
Certainly not right now. No. But do you trust? Look, we're coming off of a week where John Morant has made a game winner, right?
Oh, I'm letting Ja boogie. That's kind of my point. And I think that's why I'm going John Morant and Triple J, because let's set that high ball screen, pop back out, hit a 3, if not reverse it. Yeah. We'll pretend Desmond Bane's not there. It's really close though. It's really close.
It's so close.
It's really close. It's also a great potential NBA Jam battle too that can be played out. But it was a great question. Great question.
That
super close.
Such a gross question.
Yeah.
Just unreal. Yeah, the reason I would take that duo is literally just that I think Evan Mobley is the highest upside player of that foursome. I would rank them Mobley, Morant, Triple J, and I will have to rank them for the rookie scale rankings that are coming up. But I would rank them. Yeah, literally my job. I would rank them Mobley, Ja, Triple J, and then Garland. I really like Darius Garland. I don't really see a case for him any higher than 4th there. The other I would say Morant and Mobley are your 2 that could be number 2.
Right. And probably with Darius, I mean, he could be an all-star this year. I mean, he might get squeezed out, but he's playing that caliber of basketball.
Yeah, no. And like, it's not a slight at any of them.
No.
I think I would take the Cleveland duo though. Okay. From Bot Exemplary on Twitter, where would Jonathan Kuminga go in this draft?
No later than 5th for me. Could be higher. My hottest take, I might get killed for this. I might actually have Paolo a little bit lower. If the draft was like tomorrow, I guess just the safe play is I'd still take the big 3 of Chet, Jabari, Paolo, and probably Jaden Ivey before I'd take Kaminga, but no lower than that.
Yeah, I would probably go in the 3 to 5 range.
Right.
Kuminga.
Right.
Somewhere there, no lower than 5. I'd really have to think about it. I don't think I could take him over Jaden Ivey.
No, so that's why you go 5th, right? Unless you have some Paolo or Chet not feeling it and sliding them down a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. That was an easy one. This is a good question. It's just an easy one. Okay, this is more of a conceptual question from @vegan_baller.
Love it.
What analytics do you rely on when trying to find numbers that back up what you see when scouting?
Eye test only. We hate analytics over here. That's good. I'm
a great
not
question.
As deep.
I love it.
It is. I'm not as held to it as much as you are. I don't have the pivot analysis.
I don't even think I'm held to it. So yeah. It's
fun. It's really funny, and what I'm smiling about it is the Box and One Twitter had a draft Twitter bingo, and one of the squares on the board was per synergy, and I am so guilty of that because that's like my go-to, my tried and true. Because
shout out Matt Curley over at Synergy,
the best ever, the best ever. I can't do my half-ass job I do without him. He's the best, and he's unlocked all these stats, analytics, and now he's showing me how to look at shot charts. So they're definitely the source for me because it is broken down so well, and where they rank percentage-wise in regard to the rest of the country, and where they rank just as like a destination of poor and average and very good. So I would lead on that, and that's a better resource for me than just frankly looking at field goal percentage or whatever, just turnovers, because then you can actually like physically watch the turnover and say, okay, well, that was there because that guy didn't rotate, and analytically, yes, there's a turnover, but I'm glad he tried that read and tried that look, because I'd rather have him get reps, and I don't worry about that really translating going forward.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that both of us do tend to rely more on like the tape and scouting than just purely numbers. I certainly look at the numbers. I do use Synergy a lot. I use Synergy for shot charts a lot. I use Synergy for half court scoring at the basket, I think is a really effective one in terms of guards. Just it removes transition play. I think that it really helps in terms of determining how good of a half court finisher someone is whenever they have to finish around like a bigger dude. Trying to think what else do I randomly use? I will use pivot analytics, which is something that I have access to. I have like a bunch of on-off numbers that I tend to take a look at just to see like, okay, is this guy actually making an impact on the court? Like, is he helping his team win? You would expect these numbers to be pretty enormous for NBA draft prospects in general. Like, I remember a couple years ago, like Xavier Tillman, like they were 30 points better when he was on the court as opposed to when he was off the court. And part of that is because like Xavier Tillman played like 30 minutes a night. Like it wasn't like he didn't come off the court or anything. So, you're trying to find as many impact stats as you can while also taking what you have in terms of backing of tape and being able to understand the context of the whole thing.
Context always, because it's also not, well, per 100 possessions, this guy does this. Like, yeah, but he doesn't play when it matters. Like this guy plays, like when people dust off the AJ Griffin stats before Virginia Tech, it's like, okay, but he didn't play any meaningful minutes, so the numbers are going to look great when he's playing there. So just be careful. It's always a balance. It's not one thing or another.
The college numbers in general are extremely noisy for two reasons. One, because the quality of competition across conferences is so different. It's just so different. And then number two, the sample size is just going to be smaller. We get 2 years of NBA games that's, between 140 and 160 games for most guys, depending on how many guys are playing, I guess, and how many guys are missing some time here and there. But for college, it's 60 games. It's literally, almost a third of that sometimes. So it can be a little bit harder. I think it can be a little bit harder. And then a lot of guys that we're talking about at the highest level play 30 college games. And, we're starting to talk about, high school numbers. And I certainly look at the high school numbers. I've referenced, for instance, like Jaden Hardy's 3-point shooting in high school, right?
Yep.
Or Jaden Ivey. I'm sorry, not Jaden Hardy.
Both.
Yeah, well, both, of course. But again, those numbers are coming against quality of competition that you just don't know oftentimes. It's going to be real hit or miss in terms of the context there. So you have to be careful with the collegiate numbers. Always going to be tape over numbers here, but they have use. Like I think that it's valuable to take a look at them and see what they're bringing to the table. Okay, Pennie, let's buzz through movies.
Ooh,
let's just.
You've watched 6 my list now. Yeah, I one final wing note. We didn't really touch on Patrick Baldwin Jr. We've talked to him at length.
I specifically just didn't want to because it was sad.
Okay, fine. Okay, movies, lightning round. What I have seen. I I watched a documentary, Dead Awake. Have you seen that? It was about a guy who murdered his roommate while sleepwalking, and that was kind of his defense, which scared me because when I was younger, I actually did sleepwalk. And
Oh
one time,
God.
one time I slept over at my cousin's house, and they had an alarm system, and I set it off walking in the middle of the night. I didn't murder anyone to my knowledge, so that was a little scary. I watched Red Notice. You watch Red Notice?
I have seen Red Notice.
It was a movie. It was. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think when we watched it. It was a Friday night pre-COVID Christmas, and my wife and I were just like, we need something like to not think, like some explosions. We
Yeah.
don't have to like
Yep.
really pay attention. We can like be on our computers texting. It was perfect.
That's
for that.
literally exactly what Laura and I did. We
Yeah.
watched it our first night down at the beach a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was
a
like
month and a half ago.
I didn't follow the eggs, what they were doing. I was like, whatever, The Rock's here.
Yeah.
I watched the Kanye and Drake concert on Amazon Prime. I talked about The Matrix Resurrection. I watched the Juice WRLD documentary on HBO
Okay.
about the rapper. And
Yeah, you're diving into these music box documentaries. We
I
gotta
like
we gotta
them,
get you
man.
working for the Ringer.
I don't know about that. I'm just a sucker for the process. I am. I love the behind the scenes stuff with artists. And then I watched Don't Look Up 2 nighs ago. Have
I
you
still
watched
haven't
that?
seen it yet. No.
Wow. Okay. I think it's basically a clean sweep. I liked it. It's getting canned. If you take it too seriously, I get it. I thought it was good. It was good fun. I mean, it was
Okay.
also about like a disaster, like end of the world, good fun. But I like the parallels. I like where we're at, and you can kind of apply it to where we're at right now.
Okay, I've seen Spider-Man twice.
Twice?
Yeah, because I had to go see it opening weekend, but Laura was not feeling well, so she didn't go see it. But she also loves these movies, so we went to see it again last night.
So let's hold on, quick 30-second aside, maybe less. What's the most times you've ever seen a single movie in the theater?
I've never gone more than twice. I've
Okay.
seen probably quite a few movies twice in theaters, but I've never seen a movie more than twice.
My dad,
At least since, like, maybe I saw like The Phantom Menace when I was like 9 years old, like
I like
3
that.
times or something.
My dad
Yeah.
saw the original Austin Powers 5 times in the theaters. Good fun fact. Go ahead, keep going. I give you these little tidbits every week about my life.
Who are you?
I don't know. Looks behind me. I have a fake moose head on the wall with berries around it. I got 55 Christmas cards with health and safety quarantine. I don't know. I don't know who I am.
Okay. I watched a movie called The Deep House. It's like a scary movie that is divers diving to a haunted house.
Yeah, who am
like,
I? Who are you?
into
You're
the
watching
water.
underwater haunted house movie. Keep going.
It was cool. I was
right.
like, think about that. Like, it matches 2 genres of horror movies, like the diver underwater movie and the haunted house movie. It was pretty cool.
The ocean is terrifying. I'm terrified of the ocean. Not like I won't go out there.
Oh,
but
me too.
You know, every time that scientists dive deeper in the ocean, they find like a new species. That's terrifying. That's why I'm a sucker for like Cloverfield or Godzilla. Like they came out of the water. I'm like, that's possible. Like we don't know. Could be down there.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're looking for a scary movie like horror, direct to video on demand, I would watch that one. Like
Okay.
I think that one's actually pretty good. I watched a movie called Agnes, which is like a weird dark comedy nun movie. Again, another video on demand choice. It was fine. It was really interesting. It was one of those movies that's like a super interesting like failure almost, but makes you want to see what the director does next again.
Okay.
I saw Belfast, which is, I believe, currently the favorite to win the Best Picture award. It is fine.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. I had a nice time watching it. Jamie Dornan like sings what the hell is he saying? Endless Love? Not Endless Love. I forget what he sings. He sings like a very nice little, there's like a musical number at the end. All the music in it's like really nice. It's fine. It's a fine movie. I saw Power of the Dog, which is on Netflix.
Yep.
The second favorite right now, I believe, for Best Picture. That was awesome. That was super good.
All right. That'll be on my list potentially for tomorrow.
Very slow.
During
Just
the day.
Warning you. Like very slow. And
You're gonna love it. It's really slow.
pay attention. Like it's one of those. It's not a phone movie. Like you can't really be watching it
it's
while
tough.
you're on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or else you'll be like, what the fuck happened?
Mm-hmm.
Watch Being the Ricardos, which is the new Aaron Sorkin movie that's on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
Wasn't really a fan, which is a bummer because I really love Aaron Sorkin. Cop Shop, which is the Gerard Butler, Frank Grillo prison movie.
Okay.
Fun. Like pretty fun. It's what you think it is.
Yeah.
It's
in the title.
Like a bottle episode of a TV show where they're in a prison and Gerard Butler's doing shit. Jungle Cruise. Finally saw Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
You can watch that with your son.
With phone. Yeah.
I watched the worst movie I've seen this year.
What is
It's called Hide and Seek with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers.
Okay. I don't know if I saw that one.
It was one of those random video on demand things that just pop up. And Laura and I were debating like taking a nap. And we were like,
you should have.
Let's put this on. And
do you watch the trailer before you dive into these or no?
We watched this trailer. Laura picked it immediately that it was not a well-made movie. And she was right.
Good scout.
Okay. And then the last movie that I watched last night. It was Spencer, the Princess Diana movie with Kristen Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be my favorite movie this year.
Wow. All right. Some positivity.
It is
to end the show.
Very different than what you think it is. I had like a panic, like anxiety inducing like episode watching this movie after last night.
I don't need
like
that.
Trying to fall asleep.
I need less anxiety. I need to unwind before bed, not get wound up.
Yeah, do not watch that movie before bed. It is literally like it reminded me of a horror movie.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I thought you'd see. I have a art house ish type movie theater a couple miles from me. I thought you'd say Licorice Pizza was on your list. I know it's nominated.
It's not out here yet.
Ooh, okay, got it.
Yeah, this is the Australian problem for me. Licorice Pizza, House of Gucci. What else? There are a few other things that aren't out yet. What was one I was looking up earlier today? The Lost Daughter.
Okay.
I think that's one that I'll have to watch on American Netflix. Which is the Maggie Gyllenhaal, Olivia Colman movie that is coming on Netflix. It's supposed to be really good. So yeah, I'm running through all of my end of year movies right now, basically. I think that I have like 40 movies on my list for 2021. I'm going to get through them in the next month and eventually do like a list of best 2021 movies. But I haven't seen enough. I've seen 2021 releases. I've seen, I think, like 151.
That is something, man. That's a lot of work. You'll have time. I mean, if these games keep getting canceled, you got nothing but time. But to watch more movies, yeah. Like,
what are we gonna do? Laura and I might go down to the beach, for New Year's or something. But like, what else are we gonna do? There's no basketball. That's like worth.
There'll be basketball. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, there's NBA games, but I don't know that I need to watch. Greg Monroe, Jordan McLaughlin, shout out to those guys for being in the NBA. But
you know what's funny is that I actually, as we're recording here, I took a screenshot of the starting lineup last night just to dig it in of Jordan McLaughlin, Malik Beasley, Josh Okogie, Jay McDaniels, Nathan Knight, and then Greg Monroe goes nuts. It was an experience as a Celtics fan. It was.
Yeah, and look, I went back and watched that game kind of late last night or after it had ended last night because I knew I wanted to talk about it today.
I saw the text. I woke up, I forget what time it was. Like, do you want to talk about the Celtics? I'm like, God damn it, we're gonna have
you're just like, it's dark.
What do you want to say? What's the positive spin? We'll get better. Emails holding guys accountable. We'll get better. I hope so. I hope we get better.
Oh God. Okay. Pennie, tell the people where they can find you on the internet.
Find me on Twitter, Matt_Pennie. I'll be hanging out there a lot healthier going forward. I had a lot of stuff to go to. I don't know where my situation is at. Like Florida State plays BC tomorrow, I think. I don't know if the game was changed. North Carolina plays at BC the first of the year. Hoop Hall is coming up in a couple weeks in January. So everything's touch and go in this area. We'll see where we're at, but I'll be on the road. I'll actually be at games and getting more eyeballs on prospects too.
It's unbelievable. We're going to have Pennie on the road here.
Trying.
And we're going to be, it'll be Game Theory podcast.
Roadshow.
Just credentialing Pennie.
We're trying. I'm waiting for a few to go through. If not, I'll pull some of the strings.
That's the move. Okay. What else do I have? I have writing coming at some point, like next week, because I will do rookie rankings. I will do mock draft update at some point. I will do big board update at some point. I would like there to be games so I could watch more of these players and figure out who is good. But until then, you're going to have to deal with a big board that is comically disorganized and messy. Trying to think what else. I'll have rookie skill rankings probably late in January at some point. But there's going to be a lot coming up. And we're going to have podcasts. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Thank you for lifting us up over 1,000 subscribers. Like that's crazy
huge
to me. That I had like set that as an end of year goal and we reached it. I think, what was it? Because Pennie's
Jackie Pennie was number 1,000. I said, give me your phone.
Yeah.
So why? So this at $9.99. Watch this. I sent Sam the video. So that was I don't know, a couple days ago. We got there though. Beat the buzzer. Beat the New Year buzzer.
Yeah. So thank you guys. It was so nice to see that tick over. Yeah, more YouTube content. I'll be cutting this thing up into videos and this will be the first place that you can see the podcast. So thank you all for watching and listening. And please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the show on your podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. But we will be back later this week with some NBA stuff. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.